I call this meeting to order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. Thank you all for coming this evening. May I get a roll call, please? Here. 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 Yes. Did everybody have the opportunity to review the minutes of October 17th? And if so, are there any amendments or motions? All right. Okay. Perfect. Was there a motion?
I move that we adopt the minutes of October 17th.
Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell to adopt the minutes of October 17th, 2022 regular session. All those in favor? That is unanimous. All right, no ceremonial matters this evening. Schedule of visitors and guests. Rachel Salviter of the Ozark Chamber of Commerce. The floor is yours.
So you have in front of you our brand new program guide for the Chamber for 2023. I would encourage you at your leisure in your very limited free time to take a look through it. We have some exciting things coming up and some new opportunities for sponsorship and support of the Chamber as well as local businesses. You have the normal monthly report in front of you as well. I believe we've had a couple of ribbon cuttings within the last month. American Print Products and Healthy Avenues. That one was just this morning. Good turnout for each. I think both were very successful and our business owners were nothing but pleased and enthusiastic. You have upcoming events and programs through the end of the year. I'm excited to say that we're looking at the end of 2022 and looking forward to 2023. So tomorrow is our Ozark History Day for Ozark Leads. We'll kick that off. Sorry, not tomorrow, Wednesday. It's been a long day and it feels like 2. So Wednesday we'll kick that off at 8:30 in the morning at the library and we'll conclude again at the library at 3:30. Should be a fun day. We've got again a class of 16. That's a really great group, a diverse group of people who are excited to be a part of the program. We have our Experience Ozark Luncheon on the 17th where we'll launch our Shop Ozark program. I'm hoping that you also have this in front of you. This is our new Shop Local, Shop Ozark card. These will be printed and delivered by the time that we reach that luncheon. And you've got a list of the currently participating businesses. There are 10 so far, and we're hoping that that grows within the next couple of weeks so that launch is a nice size. Along with the Shop Ozark launch on the 17th, we'll also celebrate all of the programs that we have in 2023, and we'll be asking businesses to go ahead and sign up for things that they might be interested ahead of time. So that program guide will be released to every single one of our members at that time. We have the Christmas parade right around the corner on the 19th. First in the region. This year we are pushing Ozark Idol theme. So we're asking that each float has a musical element to it, which should make it a little more entertaining. In addition to the lights this year, we're hoping that the crowd will get to hear some good songs and see some lip syncing and have a great time. Beyond that, we have your normal programming, First Friday Coffee, Business After Hours, another Experience Ozark Luncheon. And then the only new addition is a partnership with the City of Ozark and the OC. It's our Ozark Holiday Market on December 10th. It will be at the OC. It's free to attend. And we've tried to make it inexpensive for local businesses to participate and sort of kick off that holiday spending season. Are there any questions about anything that's coming up with the Chamber? Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right. Move right into new bills, Mr. Snyder. Bill number 3400. Motion was made by Alderman Snyder, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place bill number 3400 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor? All right, Ms. Payne or Mr. McCart, who's going to take it? All right,
Yeah, so this,
if you wouldn't mind, Mr. McCart, if you wouldn't mind your microphone.
I'm sorry, I thought I did push on it. I apologize. This bill is as part of the cost share request from MDC for the southeast quadrant recharge area study that is the next bill on the agenda. This is a partnership that we have built with Missouri Department of Conservation. They have helped us and assisted us on many projects, and this one's no different. They see the value in what we're proposing to you guys and the importance of the study that we're going to propose in the next bill, and they're willing to provide 75% of the total cost of the project. So if there's any questions, I also Rhonda Burnett, she was going to be here tonight, but something came up, she couldn't make it. I do want to give her, acknowledge her for all her support she gives Ozark. She was very crucial in the Garrison Springs project, and as not only that, but this project as well. So I think she'll be here for the second reading if it goes that far, but I just want to mention her name and let you guys know of her. Yeah.
On page 2, it says renewals. I understand the total of the project is $34,881.
Mhm.
Okay. So it can be extended 3 times. It is,
So that's, I think you're talking about the underground contract. This is for the cost share for the Missouri Department of Conservation.
oh, okay, that's the wrong one.
Yep.
Okay,
We'll be there.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll come back to that question then.
Yep.
I may have misunderstood you, but did you say southeast?
No, northeast. So, okay, if you go back to the map, it's this quadrant up here and this is topography, and I was gonna hear a little bit more on this map, but it's up there near Waterford, all the way down to the small cave, pretty much going all the way to the Finley River.
Okay.
I think Alder had hers up.
Oh, sorry.
Gotcha. We just want to make sure that the state does have the funding for this. So it's been earmarked. There's no question. We will have this as a match. Is that correct?
Yes, I spoke with Ms. Burnett today, and she did indicate that it is set aside for City of Ozark and for this study. And if this study takes place into 2023, it's still sitting there for us for when the study is complete. Now, we will have to pay, the city will pay for the entire study, and then once we have the study in hand, they will reimburse us the 75%.
Thank you.
You mentioned the map and you may be going to answer this in the next round. Are you going to talk more about the map on the next bill? Okay, then I'll just save my questions.
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a contract for services with Ozark Underground Laboratory Incorporated for a recharge area delineation study.
Yes, so this is actually the contract and for the Ozark Underground Laboratories that will be performing the study. Mr. Dave Woods is here tonight from Ozark Laboratories. If you have any questions, you feel free to ask him on some the specifics of the study. But in regards to this map, I just want to point out a few things. So this, we've talked about how this all came to be many times. So I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, I know. But so we were made aware of some sediment getting in the Small Cave in the past. We did some research, and I'm not sure where the sediment's coming from. We have some ideas, but we know that the only good way to find out where the sediment's coming from is through a study. And there is a lot of development that's happened in the northeast section of Ozark and recent, and we want to make sure that we're doing and setting the best management practices in place for our stormwater, that we are not impacting anybody, regardless if it's county or city. So in this process, we have reached out to many folks, one of them being Ozark Laboratories, and got their guidance. And you can see by this map that there's many sinkholes. Those are the blue dots that are up there. And so the topography, if you look at it, it's kind of hard to. The topography, you can tell that all the subdivisions on the northeast, all that water is eventually going to make its way to a sinkhole, and which and then south down to the river basin. So by going through and placing guide testing through those areas, and I'll let Mr. Woods hit on this a little bit more than myself, and then studying it as it enters into the small cave recharge area, we can figure out where the water's coming from, how it gets there, the time and everything. We're certain that most of that water is going to get there, but the direction it flows underground is hard to determine without this study. So anyway, that's my spiel on the study. So if anybody has any questions.
Now that question.
Okay.
Okay, so the contract can be extended 3 times.
So typically that is how our contract works. I know that there's been talks of some other studies that we would like to perform depending on how this one goes. I may, if it's okay with everybody, I may request Ms. Callaway to answer that question because she's our contract expert.
Yes, the contract allows for 3 renewals for a 1-year term, but only if funds are appropriated. So the city would have, the Board of Aldermen would have to appropriate the funds for any additional studies for that contract term.
Okay, and right now it's $34,881, but if an extension was asked for, or we decided we wanted one, does that mean it might not necessarily be the same, or it might? Or it's 34,000 each time it's extended?
It's not always 34,000 each time it's extended. It would be brought back as a budgeted item, and whatever that amount was would be budgeted by the department and then brought forward in the addendum or the renewal.
Okay, but this is for the first year.
This is for a first year. Yes, it's a 1-year term with the option to renew 3 times. And at that time, when you renew it, it must be in writing. And if the dollar figure needed to change, we would spell that out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So I get, this is a fluorescent dye, and I assume?
I'm gonna defer that
Okay.
question to Mr. Woods.
All right.
Yeah. Dave Woods, Ozark Underground Lab, 1572 Ailey Lane, Pro Tem, Missouri.
Thank you.
I'm the senior project scientist for the lab. Yeah, the dyes are food grade fluorescent tracer dyes. They've been tested multiple times. There's lots of literature behind their safety and efficacy, and they've been used for over 50 years in groundwater tracing.
Okay. Really, that was my only question. I just wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
I thought that was I didn't know about the food grade stuff. I did know a little bit about the fluorescent, but I didn't know the food grade stuff, but that's good.
Up here, we've got multiple sinkholes. Or is this something you'll do in phases, different colors? in
Yeah,
different areas?
it's really weather dependent.
Yeah.
But our goal is to catch the broadest area that contributes water to the cave. So we try to hit weather events. First of all, you need the water. And also we put dye in areas that are gonna be contributing the largest amount of water coming off the land. So sinkholes are the most obvious input points, but usually they're not the best place to put dye. Most of our streams in the Ozarks are losing, meaning the water goes into the substrate and into the groundwater system. So that's why there's so many dry creeks in the Ozarks. So if we can put dye into a creek bed and it gets into the ground and we detect that in, say, Small and Cave, we know that all the water that falls on the ground that funnels to that stream is within the recharge area. So we can get broad strokes delineation of where the water is coming from. So basically, the way it works is we go out, we put samplers. These are charcoal packets, activated carbon, that can accumulate the dye over time. So I don't have to be there. I set them out. I put dye out, and then once a week I'll go back, collect the samplers. I also take water samples, and we take those back to our lab in Protem, Missouri, do the analysis on it, and we can detect dye in parts per trillion. So typically the general public would never even see the dye. But this technology allows us to detect it in the water and in the charcoal samplers in really small amounts. So it's non-invasive, it's pretty cost effective, it's safe, and it's really the first step if you want to know where water's coming from. So
Very interesting. Let's see who goes first. Miss Alder.
Are you testing for anything else other than just?
we are not, no,
Okay.
this is strictly just to find out where the water comes from. So there can be further analysis. Our lab doesn't specialize in that, but we collect grab samples of water, and if that's paired with another research lab, an analytical lab, we can send those samples off.
Mr. Flores.
My question would be is the only, I don't know what the right way would be to say it, but is Small and Cave the only place we're testing to see where all that comes back to?
We would probably put out samplers in a number of springs, or obviously we'll put some in the Finley River, so that even if we don't know exactly where the dye comes out, say we get a detection somewhere upstream of Small and Cave, we know there's other resurgences that are contributing water, say, to the Finley. So it's the way we scoped out the project is there'll be several sampling locations, mainly focused on Smalley Cave. But if they're within a close area to the cave, we can also monitor those locations. Springs, we do dye tracing all over the world, and we can put it in a toilet bowl and test in your well, or we can put it in a sinkhole and test in a cave. And we've done all types of things. So, but really, it's important to get good feedback from the community on where these springs and things might be, so that we can get in and sample them. So if we do go forward with the project, it'd probably be another round of, speaking with people and figuring out where the important springs are that we want to monitor.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments? Is there anyone in the audience here this evening to speak on this bill? Hearing no questions from the audience, one more chance for the board. Hearing nothing from the board, we'll hold this over till the next legislative session. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Campbell.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to table bill number 3402.
Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Galloway to table bill number 3402. All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstention? Opposed? Motion carries 5-1. And Mr. Campbell again.
I'd like to make a motion to table bill number 3403.
Second. Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, seconded by Alderman Galloway to table bill number 3403. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-1. Mr. Galloway. This bill is the previously tabled bill. And if you don't mind, since you brought forward a substantive bill to replace it, I'm going to remove bill number 3358 unless you have an objection. I do not. All right, so we're going to skip over 3358 and I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3404 on its first reading by title only.
Second. A motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Flores, place bill number 3404 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance, an amended ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 405-478 historic overlay district signs.
All right. Mr. Smith.
Yes. Yes, as you guys just read, following the meeting in last May, staff has further reviewed that proposed ordinance and taken into considerations to allow for more options or leniency within the historic district. Staff did coordinate with Alderman Galloway, the Historic River District, and some business owners to get some input on the revisions. If you are looking at the ordinance, what was originally proposed had been underlined and stricken in black. And then through this revised ordinance, the additional revisions are stricken, underlined, in red. So following that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Mr. Campbell.
I have not looked through this real good, I'll have to say, but can you give us what encompasses the historic district?
Yeah, I wish I brought an exhibit, but
Okay,
it's the square and about a block off the square around those areas. And then there's some satellite parcels around the downtown that were mostly residents that were brought in the historic district at that time when there was a commission that are still in the historic district. But for the most part is that core area around the square is the primary for the commercial businesses.
Follow up.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
So any signs that are in the historic district that reference city code that say parking by permit only, I think we discussed this last time and found that actually we're not collecting any fees on those permits, and I don't even know that we're issuing permits. Will those signs come down?
Those signs don't fall within this regulation or our city sign regulation. Those are something outside of those. So those parking, I think the city may have put those up several years ago, but those are a city sign, I believe. The ones around the square that say time parking or 2 hour parking,
Or say parking by permit only?
yeah, those would not fall under this regulation or the other sign.
I may have dropped the ball on that then, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
I don't think it fits here.
Okay. Mr. Gardner.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
Are the areas of the historic river district that are residential? Well, let me rephrase this. There are residential areas that are within a block or so of the square of the downtown area that are zoned C4. And they're single family homes. Are they automatically in the historic river district?
No, I want to clarify, the historic river district is not the same as the historic overlay district for the city of Ozark. The HRD is a standalone, not governed under the city necessarily through our ordinances. This is the historic overlay district that took over the historic district at the time that there was a certified local government and a commission. But within there are a lot of C4 properties. C4 allows for commercial and residential, but not all of those are within the historic overlay district. This historic overlay district, it was derived from the original historic district that was determined in the mid-90s, where those properties were brought in to the historic district by that commission at that time. But not all of those C4 properties are within this district.
Okay. Well, I will have some more questions after I do some research before this is voted on, because there's a particular property I have in mind that I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's in this district or not. So.
Ms. Oliver.
Hi, the frame signs, I see that that's been deleted. Are we not allowing the frame signs anymore?
What page?
Frame, page 6, M. Frame signs.
Oh,
That's all.
okay. So a lot of these revisions, as I discussed back in May, there's some overlap between this sign ordinance that's in the historic overlay district and our standard city sign ordinance. A lot of the strickens removes is because it's already covered within our sign ordinance. So this is kind of what's proposed in here is like above and beyond. If you fall within the historic overlay district, you got some additional criterias above and beyond the sign ordinance, chapter 407.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Smith? We'll open it up. Oh, Mr. Galloway, just in the nick of time.
I don't know, so much a question, just by way of explanation as to how the revisions, I think, are intended to work, and Cameron can correct me where I may not understand, but so presently, the signage and historic buildings are really limited to a small amount of space on the building and not really so much on the second floor. So one of the things that staff looked at is how other historic areas handled it and what they look like. And there's a variety of approaches. And the approach that was taken was to open it up to where on the second floor you can put signage so it can be seen on the first floor, then increase signage on the awnings. And here's the theory behind it. So you're on the square in your car and you're traveling towards the building. You're more likely to see it up on the second floor of the sign. You can also see it on the first floor. And you can also see it on the awning. The idea is that your eyes are going to see that sign some way or another. You get out of your car and look across the square. You're probably going to be looking just at the awning sign, which now has increased to about 80% of the awning space. That might draw you over to that building. The window sign, well, then you have projecting signs, which we already have and aren't really being utilized. So you're walking along the sidewalk, the projecting sign is across this way. If you've been to Eureka Springs, they're all over the place. That will identify the store that you're walking by, so you know to stop and look. And then it's not as important that the glass sign be enlarged, because at that point, you really are looking to see if you're at the right building with the right, you've got the right store. And you want to know the hours and so on, but you've already been brought there by these larger signs. So on the glass signs, really, if you look at how it sees even from the photograph, or if you just drive around, you really don't see those glass signs from your car. They're really not that noticeable. And that's why they're a bit smaller. And then the thing that staff took care to do is just to make sure that no sign causes irreparable damage to architectural details of the building. And that's forbidden here. And then the purpose of this ordinance is just to allow our businesses and historic buildings a better opportunity to be seen by people who are traveling to the square. And we noticed that, I think I've mentioned this before, we saw different approaches from very, very restricted sign use, purely historic, supposedly, approach to those where there's signs on like we're proposing. And it's just interesting when you look at the photographs of the different historic areas, the ones that don't have a lot of signage, there's no cars, no pedestrians, nobody there. So they're really pretty buildings with nobody there. And then the ones that were more liberal, the pictures are full of people and cars and so on. I don't think that's a coincidence. But anyway, that was the point of all this, just as a way of reminder.
Mr. Campbell?
This plays into it a little bit. Being able to see the sign is the whole point of the sign. Apparently, do we allow people, or do we have a permit process where somebody could trim a tree? Because there are some buildings that the ideal sign spot may be blocked by a tree. Do we have permits that would allow them to trim the tree, or who maintains the trees, or some of them are getting, the roots are pushing the grates up and people are tripping over the grates and stuff like that, but specifically related to this is it's blocking parts of the buildings.
Currently, right now, the Public Works Department maintains the trees. We do have an arborist. We did have an arborist on staff that has now moved in the city to another job. So we are going to be working either in Public Works or part of what we've talked about before, another department, to refill that position of arborist, because we do have a lot of public trees in our public spaces. So right now, the city does maintain the trees. To answer the other question, no, we do not currently have a permit that would allow a private individual to trim a public tree. But I do understand what you mean. If there are any situations like that, we got a pretty close relationship with all the business owners or and so forth. But there's obviously a question as that you said about roots. And yeah, anytime you have public trees in those kind of spaces, especially with pavers, you do have the risk of the roots pushing up the infrastructure there, and some of the trees are getting relatively large for the grates that actually surround them. So there have been conversations about, where do we go from here and what do we do? We don't want to lose our trees that we worked so hard on. At the same time, we've got a liability that we have to be conscious of. So, but right now it's a city trimmed tree. So if anybody does have an issue, we certainly can go out there and work with them on making sure that we allow them to have visibility for their signage.
We do highly discourage business owners and or elected officials from trimming trees. Some people that have been around for a long time understand that.
Especially elected officials.
Yes.
Not be trimming trees.
I'll tell you about that later. Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, and I told my wife I'm against trimming our trees for moral purposes. No. That is feedback that Alderman Campbell is saying is pretty common with the merchants. They're concerned about the trees covering the signage, and in talking with some of them, my response is, well, we'll just take it one step at a time. First, we'll expand the amount of signs we can put there, and then we'll have to take a look at the trees.
All right. Any additional questions from the board? We'll open it up to the public. Is there any public comment on this bill this evening? Hearing none, one last chance for the board before we hold it over. This bill will be held over till the next legislative session. Mr. Snyder.
Your Honor, I move that we place bill number 3405 on its first reading by title and description only, please.
Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Snyder, seconded by Alderman Campbell to place bill number 3405 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into a contract for the purchase of a bus from Midwest Transit Equipment.
All right, Ms. Payne.
When we did budget amendments in September, this actually came forward and the bus was in the budget amendment. So the price of it has already been approved. We thought that there was a state contract that was going to allow us to be able to purchase the bus under a state contract, but it turned out that wasn't the case. So we had to go out to bid. We had 2 companies respond back to the bid, and we are choosing the Midwest Transit contract for the 123, 131, 61. This bus, the buses that we currently have are between 19 years old and 23 years old, ranging mileage from 65,000 miles all the way up to 200,000 miles. There were at least a third of the summer that the heat index was over 110. And during our surveys after camp, a lot of the parents said that's one of the things that they were most concerned about, is that there's no air conditioning on the buses. So they're just these little tin things going around. So we're trying to start
kind of switching those over and moving to new buses. We did have an incident where the bus broke down on the side of the road on 65, and we had to get Greene County Sheriff to come and stop because we have to unload kids and shuttle. It's terrible. So this is something that we definitely need and is super important to the Parks Department to kind of start building those new fleet over.
Oh, we got flashing lights like Christmas over here. Mr. Campbell.
It's my turn. What was the reason what was the difference in the bids, or what was the reason for going with the higher bid?
In the explanation sheet, it says Midwest Transit Equipment, and their bid is a brand new 2023 model, which has an engine higher torque and horsepower, as opposed to the other bid, which is a used 2022 model with less horsepower and engine torque.
Okay, good enough. I actually read that page and didn't read that.
Mr. Snyder.
You are service personnel, have the ability to conduct maintenance on this one, or does that have to be outside?
So that was another reason that we wanted to choose Masters, is it's close and they won't work on the other bus. So if we need to do something with Masters, they're at least a local company that's a lot closer for us. So we went through this process with our fleet manager, and this is the bus that he chose because of that reason. With they can work on it, and Masters is near us. The other company, they wouldn't work on that bus. So.
Okay, and the warranty is bumper to bumper, is that correct?
I believe so.
And what about the drivetrain? I didn't.
Yes, I believe so.
Drivetrain as well. Okay. Thank you.
Miss Alder.
How big is the bus? How many?
You know, I do know the answer. 71 passenger.
Oh, okay. It's a big bus. Yeah, good.
Would anybody's company like to wrap it in something? Just an idea. You could have your face on a traveling billboard.
Please no. Mr. Campbell.
I know both these companies are fairly close. It struck me odd that you answered Mr. Snyder's question that one of the reasons you went with Masters was because they were close, but you didn't go with Masters.
We went with Midwest Transit. I'm so sorry. That's what I meant to say. Midwest Transit. I apologize. My writing's really little on my little screen here.
Any additional questions from the board? We'll open it up to the public now. Is there any questions, comments from the public with regards to this bill? Hearing none, one last chance for the board. All right, we'll hold this bill over to the next legislative session. All right, there are no resolutions this evening. There are no second reading bills. So we'll jump right to report of officers, boards and committees. Mr. Childers.
Thanks. Those that I've already scheduled meetings with for the budget. I know that we're trying to get all of that done. We are going to talk a little bit more about that this Thursday at a meeting of the Board of Alderman. And I will be reaching out to the rest of you that I haven't called yet. It's just a scheduling situation. So you will be contacted to come and meet with the finance director and myself and your as a liaison to the departments that you represent. We were going to try to get the budget done for the first reading, the second meeting in November, but it's really more likely that it'll be the first meeting will be the first meeting in December. So just want to let everybody know that everything's going fine. It's just a big budget. There's a lot to it, and it's certainly a unique time and right now. And so we'll be with you to set those meetings up. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Mr. Campbell.
And I'd like to ask everybody to vote early and vote often. You get a vote.
I'll hold my comment for later on that. Any of the other department heads, would you like the opportunity to address the board with anything that's happening inside your department? No? All right. Members of the Board of Alderman, any questions, comments? This is your time. Maybe you had something to say. All right, well, since there are no additional comments from the Board of Aldermen or the department heads, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So we.
Motion was made by Alderman Galloway, seconded by Alderman Older to adjourn this legislative session. All those in favor?